Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming along to the University Exchange information session. My name's Conleth, and I work in the Global Opportunities team in Queen's. So we're gonna look at the exchange program for academic year 21-22. And I suppose it does seem strange that we're talking about global opportunities, considering that a lot of us can't even get out of our own town or village. So in terms of this program and other programs like Study USA and Erasmus, we're hoping that the situation will improve and that will allow us that these type of exchanges to go ahead. And that's why we're still running these information sessions. So if anybody wants to ask any questions, you can do so through the chat function on the right hand side. One of my colleagues will be monitoring that, but I'll get to the questions at the end, and then we'll try and get through and answer them. So I'm just going to start going through the slides now. I'm just going to turn my camera off, but keep talking. So in terms of the session itself, we'll take a brief look at the three universities that the exchange allows students to go to. We'll hear from a couple of students who were out on the exchange in 1920. We've got a few technical difficulties with the sound, so we may push that from the middle of the presentation to the end of the presentation, but I'll let you know at the time. And then we'll go over some further information on how to apply and on the program for 21-22, and then we'll have some time for questions then at the end. So I think it would be remiss of me not to mention how COVID have affected the exchanges. So in terms of last year's program in academic year 2021, all exchanges were cancelled by the university. So no students were allowed to go out for safety reasons in 2021. For 21-22, next academic year, we're going to monitor the situation obviously throughout this semester and see how it goes. What I would say will be most likely is that risk assessments will be done for Australia and Canada. And then once those risk assessments are done, we'll look at the exchanges. But we'll let you know with good notice. But what I would suggest is not to make any financial commitments before we've approved the placement. Now, I know there's a few different stages to go through. You have to go through the application stage, have to go through the interview stage. It's then after that we would then let successful candidates know. But we would be asking at that point as well, and nobody makes any financial commitments, such as flights or accommodation or visas, before final approval has been made by the university. So just a few things to note. The year or semester that you spend abroad will replace the time that you would have been at Queen's. So that means that any marks that you achieve at your exchange university will be converted to Queen's grades and therefore will contribute to your degree classification. The programme itself is open to any full-time Queen's undergraduate student, and it's only undergraduate students this programme is open to. You can go out in your second year or your third or final year, but you ultimately must have the permission from your academic school to allow you to go out. We've seen in the past that there are restrictions on certain subjects because they have to be at Queen's for certain semesters, and we've seen in the past those have kind of it's been psychology, performing arts and business that those have related to. What we would suggest is that as you're completing the application form, you will need to talk to your advisor of studies or your international advisor, which we'll get on to later on, but it's worth running past them to say, look, I'm hoping to go out next academic year. Do you think this is a good idea? Also, medicine, nursing, biomedical science, social work, pharmacy, and law students cannot generally apply. We would advise checking with your school, but that's the feedback we've had from your school, and that can relate to having to be at Queen's for certain modules or the level of teaching in the host universities. So why should you undertake the University Exchange Programme or any exchange programme for that matter? Well, obviously the big thing is going to another country. You're building up that cultural awareness. You're maybe going to either Australia or Canada, but you're not just going to be mixing with Canadian or Australian students. You're going to be, you could be sitting in a class with students from all over the world. So again, you're building up the cultural awareness as well as language awareness as well. Within the Global Opportunities team, we're based within careers, employability and skills, and we're constantly talking to employers about what they're looking for in students. And they're looking for students to stand out to what makes them different. And to be able to say that you went to Australia for an academic year or Canada for a semester, it shows that you're setting yourself apart from other candidates for jobs. And it shows that you've stepped outside of your comfort zone and not just stayed in Queen's. It also helps you build up life skills. A lot of the students that we would have coming back to us from doing these type of exchanges would talk about how it's built up their confidence and their resilience. And we'll hear from a couple of students later on who hopefully will reiterate that. It shows a degree of flexibility, again, with employers who have maybe hubs all over the world to show that you're willing to go to different places, to them is what they're looking for in some students. And also this exchange can go towards the Degree Plus award, which looks at the skills that you build up from extracurricular activities. So that can go towards it as well. So in terms of our exchange partners, we have 3 partners for this program. The University of Newcastle in Australia, Queen's University Kingston in Canada, and the University of Alberta in Canada. Now, in terms of the places that are available, for Newcastle, there are 2 full-time places available. And what that means is that 2 students could potentially go out for a full year, or say four students for a semester each. But there's 2 places, full year places available. In terms of Kingston, there's 3 places available. Again, that could be 6 students going for a semester each, 4 going for a semester each, and then 2 for a full year, 1 for a full year. So it can be a mix of both, but that's the amount of places we've available. And then for the University of Alberta, we have 1 semester exchange available at that institution. Now, in terms of I'm just going to go briefly through the 3 partners here. And also I'll show you one of their kind of promotional videos as well. So in terms of the University of Newcastle, so it's situated on the eastern coast of Australia, around about 2 hours north of Sydney. The city itself has a population of around 500,000. I think it's 550,000 at last check. And it's the usual city facilities, restaurants, cafes, parks, gardens, etc. And then a few kilometres away, or a few kilometres south, is Lake Macquarie as well, which is Australia's largest seaboard lake. And there's a lot of kind of sailing events, etc., which will go on there. So this university itself was established in 1965. It's about 30,000 students across a wide range of disciplines. 6,000 of those coming from overseas. And what I'm going to do now is just going to play one of their promotional videos. So hopefully this will work for you. So bear with me.
Taking all the sunshine, bottle up the rain. Go where the wind blows, let it show the way. Open all the windows, let in all the light. You can pull the stars down, paint the perfect sky. So go and write your song. The world will sing along. As well begin. Memories you're making, you frame inside your heart. The middle of a nowhere, so somewhere you can start. So go and write your song. The world will sing along. That's what you make it.
Okay, folks, that's so that was a kind of promotional video from the University of Newcastle. Also, a few bits of information. University of Newcastle ranked in the top 200 universities globally, and ranked in the top 200 most international universities. It's got two campuses: the main Callahan campus and then Newcastle City campus. The main Callahan campus is just kind of it sits on about 140 hectares in kind of just about 12 kilometers northwest of Newcastle city centre. But it's an absolutely beautiful setting. And Newcastle City campus is just kind of in the central business district of Newcastle. Obviously you've seen in the video there, there's harbour, coastlines, beaches. It looks absolutely gorgeous. And as I mentioned before, there's about 6,000 overseas students who undertake who are at the University of Newcastle. One thing to note, though, in terms of the semesters, anybody going out in the first semester of next academic year will go into their semester 2. So there's a kind of, I suppose if you think about it, theirs is flipped differently to ours. Semester 1 for them is from February to June, and then semester 2 is from July to November. So anybody going out in our semester 1 would go out in July to November. Anybody going out in semester 2 would go out in February until June. So one other thing to note as well, because their second semester finishes in June, for anybody hoping to go out in their final year and gone out in our second semester in their final year, because the semester doesn't finish until June, there can be a delay in getting your transcript back from the University of Newcastle to allow for conversion of marks. So it may mean that you have to graduate in the winter rather than the summer. So that only applies to anybody who's maybe thinking of going out in their final year for either semester 2 or the full academic year to Australia, to the University of Newcastle, Australia. So in terms of the next one, the next university is Queen's University, Kingston. So this is it was established in 1841 by I suppose that's about 4 years before Queen's. It's located in the city of Kingston, and it's halfway between Montreal and Toronto. So you're between two of Canada's largest cities. It's set on the shores of Lake Ontario, on a 100-acre campus. And again, as you see from the next video, it's absolutely gorgeous as well. So bear with me, and I'll get Kingston video running. So that was a promotional video for Queen's University Kingston. A few wee bits of information, like I already said, it's based on, or set on the shores of Lake Ontario. And Kingston itself has about 125,000 students, and as you've seen from the video, it was named as one of the top 5 university towns in the world by BBC because of the other couple of universities there as well. As I mentioned before, it's only a few hours travel from Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa. So you've got real scope to see those cities as well when you're there. In terms of the university itself, there's about 25,000 students at the university, and it has the highest admission standards in the country. And then, as you can see there's about 1,300 international students from more than 123 countries. So you wouldn't be the only exchange student there, and you'd have a good chance then to meet students from all over the world. So, and then just to finally there, that the exchange operates in arts and sciences only. So then our final institution is the University of Alberta, also in Canada. It's located in the city of Edmonton, the capital of the province of Alberta. Edmonton itself has a population of just over 1 million people. And as you'd expect from any big city, there's theatre groups, symphony, opera, museums, art galleries, cinemas, and restaurants. So it's a fantastic chance to go to a very big city. Also, due to the climate, if anybody's interested in winter sports, there's a chance to undertake winter sports when you're there. So let's just play the video from Alberta.
It starts with an idea, a vision, a dream, a goal. It starts at home. It starts with questions, a decision, a plan. It starts here, in the classroom, in the lab, in the field, on the field, on the street, on the rooftops, in the coffee shop, in the boardroom, in your dorm room. So start moving, start exploring, start discovering, start asking questions, start making things, start breaking things, start small and go big. Start here and end up here. Start your journey. Get inspired. Go anywhere. Do anything. Start here and never stop.
So again, folks, another kind of promotional video for University of Alberta. Again, it just shows kind of the campus and looks, again, to me, looks absolutely brilliant. Last few bits of information on Canada, as I say, or sorry, on Alberta, located in the city of Edmonton. There's about 7,700 international students, and in terms of the institution itself, there's approximately just under 40,000 students at the university. You know, as you'd expect from the city, I mentioned that all the usual amenities are there, and because of the climate, anybody interested can undertake some winter sports as well. When I was doing my research into the institutions, a couple of things jumped out at me. That Edmonton's Ice District is Canada's largest sports and entertainment district. So anybody into maybe winter sports might like to visit that. And also for anybody who's got a sweet tooth, one of the 23 bakeries that you need to visit around the world is Duchess Bake Shop. So that was awarded by BuzzFeed. So anybody who's got a sweet tooth definitely has to check out that shop. So in terms of the semester dates, and I covered kind of this already with the University of Newcastle, as I mentioned, their semesters run, their semester 2 runs from July to November, and then their semester 1 runs from February to June. So if you're going out if you're going out full year, you'd just be going out from July to June next year. If you're going out, for the first semester, you go into their semester 2, and likewise, if you're going out for semester 2, you go into their semester 1. And anybody in the final year who's potentially going out for a full year or second semester, this could have an impact on your graduation due to the transcript not coming back in time. And then for Kingston and Alberta, their semester dates are pretty similar to ourselves, September to December, and then January to April. So a few other bits to cover. And I noticed that there was a question about the travel scholarship. So for any successful students, and that's students who get past the application process and we have an interview process and have been allowed access onto the programme, there is a £750 travel award. And we hope that will go towards the likes of flights or any costs that you would have. So in terms of tuition fees, you're not required to pay any tuition fees to your host university. Anybody who normally pays NIGB or EU fees and is spending the full year out on this exchange would only be required to pay half the normal tuition fees for the 21-22 year. Any students, again, who are paying NIGB or EU fees and spend only one semester out at any of these institutions will just be required to pay the normal full tuition fees to Queen's. Now, that half tuition fee for anybody going for a year doesn't apply to international students. You're still eligible to claim your normal student loans or maintenance grants as you would if you were here at Queen's. And therefore, you would only have to organise, well, when I say only, you would have to organise the cost of your accommodation, visas, travel, health and insurance. And we've kind of put down a few estimated costs on the notes for the institutions that are on My Future. If anybody is concerned about money or wants to kind of look at plans for money, there is the Global Graduates website, which is really good to give you kind of good advice on planning and your budget for the year. So we've got a couple of exchange students, and I'm hoping we've got through our sound difficulties. So if we've got Isabel, actually, it says Imogen on the screen. My fault, absolutely apologies to Isabel about that. I couldn't change it at the very last minute. So if I could get Isabel and Mary maybe to turn on your cameras and your microphones, and we'll see if the actual sound is working for you guys. And if it is, I suppose Isabel, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
And Mary?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mary. Brilliant, excellent. So folks, look, first of all, thanks so much for coming along. Isabel went out to the University of Newcastle in 1920 for semester 2. Mary also went out in 1920 for semester 2, but she went to Queen's University, Kingston in Canada. So folks, I'm just going to run through a few questions, and I'll start with yourself, Mary. Well, I'll put it to both of you, but Mary, you can answer first. Why did you apply for the programme?
The main reason I applied is that I just knew I wanted to do something exciting with my university time. I got to the stage in second year where I hadn't moved out yet, and I was just getting the train up to university, and I knew I wanted to maybe do Erasmus, so do an exchange. It wasn't like a compulsory component in my module or anything, but I just knew I kind of like didn't know what career I wanted to do. I wasn't 100% sure on what sort of direction I wanted to go in. Therefore, I thought that by doing an exchange and just being bold and just going to Canada, I would be able to sort of, experience something different and take something away from experience, and hopefully have an idea of what I wanted to do with my degree in a different setting away from home, and just kind of, go on an adventure, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair enough. It's probably the same ideas that a lot of students would have. And what about yourself, Isabel? Why did you want to undertake this program?
Yeah, I think probably, well, obviously the same sort of thing. I stayed at home for uni, so I'm from just outside Belfast, and I think it was just the opportunity to get to travel. And I feel like Canada's the same. It's so far away. They're not exactly places you would go on for a 2-week holiday. They're countries you can only really experience if you actually commit to going there for so long. And obviously, well, I went also for the weather because it's so warm.
Yeah.
But just for the lifestyle, just for a change of scenery. Yeah,
no, brilliant. To go right back to the start, you would have been sitting at one of these information sessions, maybe thinking about doing this program. How did you find the application process? And you can be honest about that. Don't feel the need to say it was absolutely brilliant. Isabel, sorry, I'll ask you first.
It was hard, I'm not gonna lie. It was a lot of work. Because I do a joint degree. If you do a joint degree, I don't know if it's changed, but you needed 2 references from 2 lectures from both subjects, and you needed both course conveners to sign off on your module so that they agreed that your degree there would transfer over. The actual application part was grand. It was just, why do you want to apply? Have you ever been away somewhere for long before, kind of thing? How would you deal with homesickness, that sort of stuff. But it was one of those things you definitely had to be on top of getting your lectures to write you some references and getting it all in on time. I'm pretty sure I handed mine in like an hour before the deadline, printing things out in the library. But definitely kind of know what lectures you would maybe want to ask in the December. I mean, the application was due end of January for our year, so definitely kind of be on top of chasing people up for things.
Yeah. Well, and same with yourself, Mary, would you agree?
Yeah, completely the same about being on top of things and just being super confident that this is something you want to do, I think is the main thing. I think that's what really kind of shines through your application, is that you're organised and keeping going and getting your references, and like knowing even like stuff like when you had to go for the interview eventually whenever your application got accepted, like knowing like information about university and knowing that why you wanted to go and for these particular reasons, I think is just important. Like it was difficult to make sure you had all your information together, because there is that kind of like excitement of like, I just want to travel and go on an exchange, but then you have to think about, no, actually, what does this university offer me and how do I get that across my application, and what will this do for my degree, more than so that what will it do, sort of what will I go and do over there.
Yeah, and yeah, no, that's brilliant, folks. And I suppose, look, our closing date, you mentioned January as well. It's for this year. It's the 5th of February. Is the closing date for applications. But yeah, we would find a lot of feedback is that course selection can be the hardest thing about the application form. But I suppose when we think about it, those modules that you're going to be studying in Australia or in Canada are going to replace the modules that you would have been taking here. So there has to be an emphasis on choosing the right modules for yourself and obviously for your course as well. So I think that's why that takes a little bit longer than maybe the rest of the application form. But Mary, yeah, you're totally right. We want to see students who have a reason why they want to go, have done their research, etc. But we'll get on to that a little bit later on. So, you've gone through the application, you've been successful. We've given you your £750 or whatever it was at the time, and you've gone to Australia and Canada. What was your first impressions, Mary, when you got over there about the experience?
I think probably different in terms of weather from Isabel, like just freezing, because I decided to go when it was like minus 14 degrees. I thought that would be a really terrific idea to like really, throw myself into that sort of new experience. But when I got there, because I went to Canada, my mum came with me, so we spent like a few nights in Toronto. Was like, sure, why not? And then we went over to the university, and first thing I noticed about university is that the campus was just like massive. Like I'm sure people would say that about ours as well, but I think just whenever it's all completely snow, like it just felt really like magical or something. And my accommodation, I stayed in Hall, so it was only like a 20-minute walk from campus. So that was the first thing I noticed, was just like it felt very like homey. It felt very like similar 2 hours, in the way that even like the buildings, the way it was structured and things, it just felt very vast. So I think for me that was the first thing I noticed, was just kind of felt it didn't feel like miles away from our own campus.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Isabel?
I was the complete opposite. I arrived in jeans and like a North Face puffer coat, and it was 33 degrees in Sydney, and it was awful. It was like having to change into shorts. I was like carrying a coat around. Everyone had sunglasses on. I think I underestimated the heat, because February is just the end of their summer. Then I actually got up to the campus. It was kind of a similar feel. Like there, they have their halls nearly split into colleges. So they're very, very protective of their own college. So I was in a college called Ted's, and like it was just immediately a homey feel. There were quite a lot of other international students. So I met some American girls and some girls from Uni of Liverpool. So it's kind of like a nice home away from home kind of thing, having people from here kind of thing. And the Australians themselves are so friendly. So literally, I think my first day there, I got lost and asked a girl directions and ended up going out for dinner with 6 girls that night. Like, just really easy to make friends. Like, they were so genuinely lovely. And then within the first week, they call it O weeks, so orientation weeks, they're freshers, but like a pool party, like a whole different type of lifestyle. Buses to the beach, everyone went to the beach. It's like sitting on a surfer village, so like it's a massive surfing town. They had surfing competitions. Like, it was just crazy. So definitely was really easy to make friends. Like, the homesickness did not last very long.
Yeah, mine either.
Yeah, I suppose we find that with a lot of these exchange programs that, you know, the first couple of days, it's nearly you're riding on the excitement, you're being there. After a couple, maybe a week, it can dip a little bit when you start thinking about home. But nowadays with FaceTime and technology, home's not that far away at all. So you mentioned the parties and stuff. We'll step away from that for a wee minute. And we'll just talk about the studies. How did you find, and I'll talk to you first, Isabel, how did you find the level between, say, Queen's and Newcastle?
I found it a bit harder to adjust at first, mostly because I was doing types of politics and history that I'd never come across. It was a major focus on Australian foreign relations, which is obviously something that I've never had to learn, but the lecturers themselves were very supportive, and obviously it's a completely different system, so it wasn't Canvas, so it was trying to get to grips with their form of online stuff. But the actual lectures themselves were quite similar, and you got good support from your classes, and the libraries were always open 24/7 as well, so it wasn't hard in that respect, but definitely it took a bit of adjusting. It was a bit of a jump, but if you reached out to the support, it was there for you.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Mary?
Yeah, definitely the same sort of thing. One main difference was the extra module, just whatever way the units, in terms of how they sort of transferred over in Canada. I had to do like an extra module, which kind of frightened me at first because I was used to doing 3, obviously like 3 each semester. You had to do 4. And with the way that just particular university I went to, the way that they tested you, it was like little and often. So usually in terms of the module doing English, like you would maybe get one massive essay, which would be like worth maybe 75% of your whole mark for that semester, and maybe a presentation, then you have your attendance. Whereas over there it was like you might have been having like a quiz on week 1 and then a small essay on week 2 and then a presentation week. Like, it was very much like little and often. So like the grades were like worth smaller percentages, but you felt that whenever you got to like that final exam that you had maybe built up a good amount of like grades or a mark there. So that's the one thing. Main difference was like I found myself, I was doing essays more often and doing work more often instead of building up to one like massive mark. But that was the only difference, and I felt like in a way I got used to that, and I kept myself busy as well, because it does distract you in a weird way, because you are maybe feel a bit homesick or whatever for like a brief moment, and then you realise that you have work to do, and that's okay.
So in terms of integration into the life of the university, did anybody get involved with any clubs or societies? And I'll go to you first, Mary, just to help with that integration.
Trying to think. For me, like, it was because I had so much, like, I was going to, like, I'd be like with music and things like that, and I wanted to join those, but I had so much work to do, like having that extra module, that I found that I couldn't actually commit to an extra, like, doing, like, joining something like that. However, with wherever my residence was, they constantly had different activities going on. So with like I was living with a bunch of exchange students, which was really good. So people from all across the world. So whatever way our like residence was called ResNet. So for example, like we went for a weekend skiing as part of our whatever way the accommodation worked. So they would organise loads of different things. But we were meant to go like to this like maple syrup ranch as well. But then COVID happened, so we couldn't go to that. But like that was like our main kind of club. They had loads of different things going on within the halls. So that was, we all went down for different dinners and things like that. So that was the main thing that I was a part of, and that helped making new friends as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, and what about yourself, Isabel? Did you get involved with anything, any clubs, even outside of the university?
Yeah, so when I was over there, I joined the netball team. They had like a massive freshers fair, and I joined the netball team, and it was great. Like, it was a really good way to meet people. Obviously, COVID hit maybe about a month and a half, 2 months in, so obviously that stopped. But within the college, there were so many events, nearly similar to Canada, but like the other way around weather-wise. So we went sand surfing in the sand dunes, and like the whole college went. It was a massive thing, and they did every weekend. People would go to the beach and do surfing lessons. Like, they organised a lot of things for people to kind of get together and do. They also had lots of like inter-college sports. So like TEDs would play another college kind of.
Apologies, folks. I think it just went down there. So I hope you, Isabel and Mary, you can still hear me all right?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Yeah. I'm not too sure if that was it was me or it was the signal. So the last I heard there, and I'm going to just flick on to the slide again. You were talking about the netball team.
Yes.
I'm not too sure if that was quite a while ago.
So they did like a lot of inter-college sports, which was great, and they would get like every single person would be out supporting their college. So it was really easy to make friends. And then the college I was in was catered, so every breakfast you were with the same people getting breakfast together, and dinner was the same. So it was definitely like joining the teams and doing the sports, even if you were really bad at it, it was still the easiest way to meet people.
Yeah. And yeah, no, and I suppose that helps when you're trying to settle in for those first few weeks and to make friends. And I suppose all of the institutions would have welcome weeks, and you mentioned about orientations and stuff like that. So another great way to get, in case anybody's worried about fitting in and homesickness, it's a great way to get over it. I suppose it would be remiss of me not to mention COVID. And I suppose, how was your exchange, Isabel, affected by COVID?
Well, Newcastle were very well organised in getting everything online, as they have people that do their modules online anyway, as it is in Australia. So putting their actual lectures up, that was okay. In terms of living, I actually moved down to Sydney with Australians that I'd met. So I didn't leave Australia. I stayed until the end of July, until my visa ran out. But the actual college itself, obviously, a lot of events were cancelled. Quite a lot of people moved home. Quite a few exchange students left. A girl from Liverpool stayed as well. There was a group of 5 of us, 2 Americans and 2 from England. So 3 out of 5 went home, which was obviously quite sad. But the Australians themselves were so welcoming, and it was then interesting. I got to move to Sydney. So I spent, 4 months in Sydney, which wasn't what was planned or anything. It was definitely hard making the decision to stay, as it was quite last minute. It was nearly, the borders were closing now. It was the right decision for me to stay, just because I wasn't really ready to leave. But in terms of the campus, they were extremely supportive, and regular emails, even from Queen's, checking how you were, where you were, how everything was going. So from both sides, there was definitely the support there. But it obviously was hard. I mean, even just like trying to accept the fact that it wasn't exactly how your semester away was meant to go. But yeah, it was okay.
And what about yourself, Mary? How did you get on? By the way, folks, I'm assuming your studies then went online for a certain period of time. But sorry, Mary, go on ahead.
How did you find? It's kind of similar. I did go home. I think I had to go home just before St. Patrick's Day, and that was the main reason. It happened pretty fast, so because I don't know, it felt like one day it kind of wasn't a thing, and the next day, kind of everything kind of got worse. So it was more because I was living with like 12 people in like shared accommodation. That our accommodation emailed, and they were like, unless you can't go home, like we would advise that you moved out. And then obviously the university was closing, so then it was kind of like I didn't have anywhere to go anyway, so I just booked a flight home, and I was home for St. Patrick's Day. But no, my professors were amazing, because I think I was in all of my classes, I was the only one of like maybe a couple of exchange students, and they were very much like offered all the support, and they said, you know, just like go home, get yourself sorted, don't be worrying about, like, it was very much like your like well-being was put to the forefront there. It wasn't so much like, oh, how are you going to complete your exam, or how are you going to get this essay in on time. Like, I know all of my, especially with the time difference, whenever I came home, all of my professors were really accommodating, because it was obviously kind of scary and just situation to adjust to. But no, I found like I went up and spoke to all of them just before I left, and they were very much just like, no, get yourself home, and we'll, you know, email each other back and forth. And then I was able to complete all of my exams online with the time difference, and yeah, it worked out okay in the end. It was just disappointing, obviously, because I had another, I think, 2 months I planned to stay out there, so it was a bit annoying, but I mean,
yeah, I suppose as long as you were able to complete, that's the main thing, and there was adjustments made. Now, obviously, for 21-22, we were very hopeful that the exchange will be allowed to go ahead, and you know, I suppose in general we're kind of seeing a bit of light at the end of the tunnel with vaccinations, etc. So fingers crossed. And like I said from the outset, for any of the students, we will be monitoring the situation and providing regular updates. I've kind of went longer than I hoped to go on, probably because the system went down. But I suppose, Gerard, would you recommend the programme to anybody hoping to do it? And I'll start with yourself, Mary. Is it something that you would definitely recommend?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. It was a real like life changer for me. Like, I completely, especially because it was my first actual experience moving out. Was moving to Canada for 3 months. But I completely recommend it. I mean, obviously there is that initial, if you're going out, you know, homesickness for a little bit. It's more just that sort of like, you know, sense of like separation from like what you're, especially for me, just because it was my first time moving out, of what like my normal routine was. But like there's just, the first thing I will say, there's no issue about making friends. There's going to be a support network there for you, and if you do or you know are finding that difficult, then there's so many people you can ask. And especially at Queen's in Canada, I found that like professors and the students are all just like so lovely and reassuring. So I would definitely recommend it, and just throw yourself into it completely.
Yeah. And
yeah, I'd definitely be the same. Honestly, even just applying, there's no losing. Like, I applied and did the whole, I'll give it 100% my best. If I get it, I'm meant to go to Australia. Like, it's a sign. And just go and embrace it. I can say I've made friends for life. Like, I still talk to them every day.
Me too.
When the border opens, I would go back in a heartbeat. There's really no losing. You cannot lose out from applying. If you go, you go, you know, there's nothing that is a negative in it. I mean, yes, obviously there's homesickness, but that is so easily combated. I mean, we're not living in a time where we need to go to a payphone or write a letter. You know, like, you can ring your parents within a minute and talk to them. You don't actually feel like you're missing out as much as you are. Like, you miss your friends, but you can talk to them. Like, there's a way around everything.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. Look, folks, I'm going to go on with the slides. But look, thanks for obviously coming along. We have the chat function open, so if there's any, if you're happy enough to stay to the end of the session, I'll ask any questions that might be relevant. By the way, when we finish this session, it kind of comes to a dead stop, so that we won't be going back into the green room for Isabel and Mary. So thanks again for coming along and letting us have some of your time. So I'll get you to turn off your cameras and your microphones now, but later on I might get you to maybe turn on your microphone again if there's any questions. So we'll just continue on, folks. In terms of the application process, So what we would advise now is to read the university notes that are up on My Future, research the universities, and obviously look at their modules. And I'll get onto the modules just a little in a few slides' time. The applications are currently open on My Future, and what we'll do is I'll at the end of the session I'll pop up the link to the application. We would advise, when you're looking through the application, to make an appointment with your advisor of studies or your international advisor or your director of education. Maybe in the first instance, maybe your advisor of studies is the best person to contact, because you'll have to look at the modules that you can potentially study at your host university and the modules that you're going to be missing at Queen's. Ultimately, your school will have to sign off on those modules. So as part of the application, we need those modules or an idea of those modules kind of drawn up. You'll also have to nominate a referee in your application form. So we would ask that that's an academic member of staff who knows what you're, who knows the kind of type of student you are, and you know, the type of work you've been submitting, and it can attest to your marks as well. I suppose what we're looking for is students that are, you know, of a good academic standing, because you know, you're going to be going over to a new university, new surroundings, new city, new style of teaching. So we want students to be able to maybe adjust to that when they get over there. So the application deadline is the 5th of February at 2 p.m. Then anybody who's successful will invite to interview on the 17th of February. So maybe it's worth kind of keep looking at your diary and making sure that that date is kept open. And then if you're successful at interview, we will nominate you to the host university. In terms of the application process then, the application form, the first part is just your personal details, and I would hope that you all will know those. The second part is the academic career and qualifications. So again, we want to see students, we will be looking at your marks, so we will be wanting to see students with a good academic standing, again, to keep up with the rigors of studying abroad in a different environment. The third part is your previous work and study experience. So we want you to include anything that will be relevant, such as if you did do any volunteering abroad, or maybe working in a summer camp, etc. If you don't have any experience abroad, that's fine. Don't worry. Don't rule yourself out. You know, you just still complete the application. You can put down work experience here as well. In terms of your evidence of extracurricular activities, as Isabel and Mary mentioned, as I mentioned about, you know, when you started getting into the new university, you want to join your clubs and societies to help with that integration. So we're wanting to see students who maybe have experience of joining clubs or societies already, and that could be inside or outside of Queen's. So we'll this will determine how you engage in university life in a different country. So we want to see how your interests and your participation already in clubs and societies can complement that. And then the fifth part is the personal statement. The question then for that personal statement is discuss your interest in your degree subject and how that interest developed, and the way in which your exchange year at your first choice university will complement your studies at Queen's. And what we want to see is what do you hope to get out of it? How does it fit with your studies and your career plan? And we want to see that you've researched the university and the area that you're potentially going to as well, and what it can offer in terms of modules, etc. So in terms of the application, and make sure that it is in before that deadline and uploaded to My Future for that deadline. We would only accept one completed application form per student. And on the application form, you rank in order of the universities that you wish to attend, 1, 2, and 3. You can put down 1, 2, and 3, or you can put down just your first choice. It's entirely up to yourself. We would ask that you complete the course selection form for your preferred university on the application. You only need to complete for your preferred. And then obviously put down a list of courses and modules that that you can do at your host university. Again, this should be drawn up in consultation with your advisor of studies, your international advisor, or potentially your director of education. And then also we need you to nominate a member of academic staff who can comment on your academic performance. If you're doing a joint honours, we would ask you to put down 2 members of staff, obviously one from each subject. Again, the deadline is 2 p.m. on the 5th of February. So what both Mary and Isabel mentioned is about one of the hard parts, I suppose, is the module selection. So I'm just going to put forward a few slides now just to show you where to look for the modules for each university. Excuse me. And the first one, now the links to all these websites are in the guidance notes on My Future, on the job on My Future. And it's down as a job in My Future rather than an event, or it's down as a job. But I'll put up the link at the end of the session. So in terms of the University of Newcastle, you are going to go to the course handbook, and that's, you can see just the website there at the top of the screen there, just newcastle.edu.au/course. And the exchange itself operates in most subject areas. So it'll bring you up a list of the courses that you can do. You should search for your course. In this case, I've kind of looked at chemistry. And you'll see there, the one I've highlighted there is physical chemistry. And you can see that in most cases, any subjects that start with a 2 will be second year, start with a 3 will be third year, etc. So you'll be kind of looking at those that start with a 2 or a 3. For the University of Newcastle, when you select into that, it'll show you the amount of units that the course is worth. So for the University of Newcastle, you should have 3 modules. You should be selecting 3 modules at 10 units each, basically. So this one you can see has 10 units. This will be one of the modules that you potentially could study. And then you can see there as well, it's level 2 or 2000 level 2. But there also will be level 3 courses as well. So when it comes to looking at the modules, what we would suggest is make a note of a description of the modules. And this would be what you would bring to your advisor of studies or the person in your school who's going to help you with the module selection, because they'll want to see what the module actually contains. So you can see there for that physical chemistry one, I've kind of highlighted there, it's got a description as well. So for the next one, for the university, for Kingston University, you would go to the academic calendar page, and that's on the university's homepage. Again, the links will be in the guidance notes on My Future. You would select courses of instruction, and when you select that, it'll bring up a list of a PDF with all the courses and modules. So you'll be then looking for your kind of your courses in those. You can see there I've looked at just I've given an example of biological sciences, and again the one I've selected there starts with a 2, which would indicate that it's a second year course. It starts with a 3, it would be a third year course, etc. And for Kingston, you should select courses totaling 24 credit points for the academic year, or 12 per term. So you can see there on the selection I've made there, there's a 3.0. So that would indicate that there's 3 credit points for that module. So you would be selecting 4 modules per semester for Kingston. So totaling 12 altogether. Some of the modules they have has a 6.0, which would indicate it's worth 2 modules, but you'll be kind of looking at the 3.0 modules for that. Again, it will give an indication of it'll give you an indication of the content within each of the modules, and again, that's what you would be bringing to your advisor of studies. And then finally, the University of Alberta, when you log in, they have a system called Bear Tracks, is what they've got all their kind of modules on, and you can sign in as a guest. I've just highlighted the section from the link again in the guidance notes where you can sign in as a guest. The exchanges operates in most subject areas. Excuse me. There is a drop down on the next screen, and it says winter term 2021. Now, obviously, you'll be going out in later in the year than winter term, obviously 2021, because that's the term that they're currently in. But you can use this as guidance for looking at the modules that you can select, because the modules rarely change year on year. So you would select that drop down to winter term 2021. Then the next, it'll then bring up another section, and you can drop that down to your subject. And you can see here I've selected just English as an example. And then it'll bring up all the modules that are available. Again, you're looking at the modules that start with a 2, or potentially start with a 3 for those in maybe going out in their third year. The same as Kingston, you should select courses totaling 24 credit points for the academic year, or 12 per term. Full year courses are normally worth about 6 points, and single term are normally worth about 3 points. And then it'll give, when you select into the module, you can see here, again, I've selected that English module. It says the units are 3 units, so it's a single kind of module. And then it's got a description as well, which again, you will be bringing to your advisor of studies. So as both Imogen and Mary both alluded to, this can be the hard part of completing the application form. But it's hard because we need to know that your school approve of the modules that you're selecting. So do this in conjunction with your advisor of studies, or it can be your advisor of studies. Some cases you might be directed towards a director of education, but maybe the first port of contact would be your advisor of studies. So that's the kind of module selection for the 3 institutions. So now, folks, I'm just going to go on to the questions that we have, and we've got quite a few questions in the chat. So I'm going to try and cover all these questions. But if anybody has any other questions, please let me know. I'm going to go to, I think that's Aveen there. Hi, Conor and Rory. You said this program is only open to undergrad students. I am in my final year of my undergrad degree. Is there any chance that final years can do this sort of study abroad? If you're currently in your final year now, unfortunately, no. You can only do it as an undergrad student. So you have to be an undergrad during academic year 21-22. So it's only open to undergrad students at the point that you're going out. Ryan asks, just to confirm, there's only 1 student place available for University of Alberta. Yes, the University of Alberta only have 1 semester exchange available. Basically, because it's an exchange, there has to be a parity of the amount of students that's coming from the University of Alberta, and the same with the other 2 universities. So currently, there's been more students over the last few years have come in from Alberta than have went out. So other way about. There've been more students that went from Queen's to Alberta than have come in. So we have to try and balance that up. So for this, or for 21-22 academic year, there's only 1 semester place available at Alberta. So Francis said, I'm currently doing a politics degree. Am I unable to go to the Canadian universities? No, you can still apply to the Canadian universities. There will be politics modules at those. I think that's Canaan. I might be pronouncing that totally wrong, so I apologize if I am. Does this exchange also apply to master's students in their final year? No, unfortunately, it's only to undergraduate students. This exchange applies. Rebecca, I'm in my 2nd year doing biomedical science. Is the degree suitable for this type of exchange program? As I mentioned at the start, certain subjects it won't apply to, because maybe the amount of teaching you have to do, or the amount of time you have to be at Queen's, or you have to be at Queen's at certain modules. What I would suggest is, for anybody who's thinking that, oh, I'm not too sure if this will apply, ask your advisor of studies if it would be, if you'll be allowed to go out on this module, and indicating when you would hope to go out, either for the full year, or semester 1 next year, or semester 2 next year, and they'll be able to advise if you would be allowed to, from the schools, if you would get the school's approval. Kira, do the arts and sciences only at Queen's Kingston include psychology? I believe they do, Kira. Yeah, I think psychology is included in that one, but I'll take that one away, and I'll come back to you directly about that one. Yeah, and I see, Anushka, you've asked that question as well. I believe, yeah, psychology is considered, but then I'll come back to you on that. Leah, I'm a 1st year undergraduate student doing international relations and conflict studies. Could I only apply next year? No, you could apply this year to go out in your second year. Again, the same deadline would apply as in the 5th of February deadline for going out next academic year. So yeah, you could apply this year to go out in your second year. So Amanda, I'm doing English literature with creative writing joint degree. We haven't started the latter half of my degree yet, so do I still need to get a lecture reference for this? Yes, yes, you probably would. I suppose it will depend on when you hope to go out. If you're going out for, I'm not too sure how your course would work, Amanda. If you would do all your all certain subjects modules in your first instance, but I would suggest just to cover all your bases is that you get a lecture reference from both areas for that. So yeah, I would suggest getting lectures that can attest to both kind of subjects for that one. John, I'm currently in my second year, but looked direct entry from a foundation degree in Belfast Met. Would my grades in my foundation degree be taken into account because I would only have results from a second year? John, I think we would take that into account. We look back at the previous year, the previous years, and we want to see students have a good academic standing. So yeah, anything that can give us that indication that you're of good academic standing would be taken into account, because obviously when you go out to your host university, there is, you're having to get used to a new style of teaching, new environment, new accommodation, new friends, etc. So we don't want students who are maybe struggling in the previous year, who might then struggle going forward. So we want to see students have a good academic standing. So we will be looking back at previous years' marks. Jack mentioned that performing arts may have restrictions. What sort of restrictions was this referring to? So I suppose, Jack, that's the restrictions from the school with certain subjects with performing arts. Again, as I mentioned before, you might need to be a Queen's for certain semesters. You might have to do certain modules that you can't do at your host universities. Again, I would mention this, talk to your advisor of studies about this. Again, saying to them that you're hoping to go out in semester 1 or semester 2 of next academic year, looking at the modules that you potentially do, and they'll be able to advise if you're able to do that. Alfred has asked the question, is law degree appropriate for this exchange? Unfortunately not, Alfred. Law isn't, because of the level of teaching in Canada and Australia, and the modules that you have to do at Queen's, law isn't acceptable for this exchange. Ashleen asks, is accounting appropriate? I'm in first year. Yeah, Ashleen, yeah, accounting can be, is one that can go on this exchange as far as I'm aware. Again, because we are not because we don't have the academic background that your advisor of studies would have, I would suggest that you obviously consult with your advisor of studies and ask them the question as well, just to make sure that they're happy enough for you to go out on this exchange. And obviously as well, they'll have to attest to the modules that you would choose. So Rochelle, what would you suggest for first year students looking for academic references? Obviously lecturers haven't really got to know us because we've been online all year. Yeah, I suppose that's a fair enough question. Yeah, I would still contact anybody who has who you've been in contact with this academic year. Any of your lecturers who that you've had modules with. At the end of the day, they'll be able to see some of the work that you've been submitting, and your participation in class as well. So I'll put down those academics who you've had more contact with, if that makes sense. I see Keenan, I hope, again, sorry if I'm not pronouncing that wrong. I'm currently in my third year, and next year will be my final year master's degree. I'm currently in my third year, and next year will be my final year in my master's degree. Will I be able to do my master's in Canada? The exchange is only open to an undergraduate at an undergraduate level, so I would doubt that. But I suppose if you email Go Global at qub.ac.uk, I can look into it for you, Keenan. I'll need to look at what your subject you're doing yeah, kind of your modules. So if you just email direct at goglobal@qub.ac.uk, I can look into that for you. Leah, so we need to have my application finished by the 5th of February for second year already. Yeah, so if you're hoping to go out in your second year as a next academic year, if you're currently in first year and you're hoping to go out in your next academic year, the application deadline is the 5th of February. And that's yeah, for any applications for next academic year, that's the deadline, the 5th of February. Richard, if the program doesn't go ahead this year and I've been offered a place, could you defer until next year, or would I have to reapply? I suppose that's happened for students this academic year. You can potentially defer your place to the following academic year. Yeah, we would receive feedback whether we have been accepted or a place in time. So for a place in time, so we can organise our accommodation contracts with Queen's. We would give feedback. Once the application deadline's finished, we will be letting anybody know who hasn't been successful that they haven't been successful before you're invited for interview. Then after the interview stage, anybody who's not acceptable after that, we would hope to let them know in the next week or two after that interview day of the 17th of February. So we would be kind of hoping to let students know if you've got a place in the program by towards the end of February altogether. So folks, I know that I've covered a lot of questions there. I hope I've answered them okay. We've covered a lot of information over this session. I'm just going to put up the actual link to the application. You should be able to see that coming up on your screen now. Rory, my colleague, has put up the email address for Go Global. If there's any questions that maybe I have missed, or that you have any other questions, please don't hesitate in emailing Go Global at qub.ac.uk. And look, I'll try and answer them as best I can. But yeah, the deadline for applications is the 5th of February. The applications go through My Future. All the information is on the My Future portal, which I've sent the link through now. So I'll just finish by saying thanks to Isabel and Mary for coming along and giving up your time to answer some of the questions, or sorry, to give your feedback on your participation on the program. Best of luck to everybody who applies. And like I say, the deadline is the 5th of February. And we would hope then to let anybody into that we invite for interview know probably around about that week beginning or the week after the 5th of February deadline, because obviously the interviews then are the 17th. So thanks folks for coming along, and I'll finish the session now.